Trust is not automatically given. Trust is earned, and as I'm quoting my mentors as well here. You drop love, it bounces. You drop trust, it shatters. And it takes as long or longer to rebuild trust once it's broken.
Welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast, where men get real. Men of all ages and backgrounds come together to own and discuss how we show up in the world and the mask that we present ourselves. In this work, we're going to talk about the front of the mask, which is the things that we gladly let the world see. And we're going to talk about the back of the mask, which are the things that we don't talk much about. Maybe ask yourself right now, what mask have you been wearing? What are the things that you gladly share and talk about with people? And what are the things that you don't really talk much about? Sharing his mask today is Ken Mossman. Ken is an executive coach. He is the host of the Mojo for the Modern Man podcast. In this conversation, we talk about masks. We talk about ourselves. We talk about the work that we do with men. Ken imagines a world where all people are valued and experience a sense of belonging and wholeness. And in that wholeness, he had a quote that I really want to share with you. He says, if you drop love, it bounces. But if you drop trust, it shatters. Now, everything that shatters doesn't mean that it's done for good. I mean, there's some patching that needs to be done if something shatters, but it may not look the same. It may not feel the same. And I imagine that as we begin to find ways and find people in our life to take off these masks, to share more of our full self, we may worry about people betraying our trust. We maybe worry about people sharing what we've shared with them, finding those safe spaces to have confidential conversations. Ken and I, we're going to share our masks here publicly, but you can do yours anonymously at millionmask.org. Something I'm really excited about in this episode is that this is the last episode of our third year of the Taking Off the Mask podcast. We're so excited that Ken rounds out the end of our third year. And next week, we will be kicking off our third year anniversary as we launch into our fourth year of these conversations with men from all over the world. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for sharing podcasts that inspire you. If you haven't checked out those podcasts that you really enjoyed and shared them with someone, please do that today. Give us a rating in the places that you listen to podcasts. Share an episode with someone. If nothing else, make sure you tell somebody to come and check out our third year anniversary episode, which we're really excited about. But today, Ken Mossman, we're so excited to have you listen to this episode. And we thank you all for being a part of the Taking Off the Mask podcast. Ken Mossman, welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast. I'm so glad to have you.
Ashanti, it is a delight to be joining you here from the other side of the country.
I think you said something like you just recently had a 14-degree day, and I think I almost lost my ability to speak.
Yeah, this morning it was 14 degrees. Tomorrow it's going to be something like that, and then anyway.
Oh man, I'm amazed. I was so impressed that you said it with a smiling face, because if I ever say the word 14 degrees, I think I'm gonna be like, only when I'm talking about it for someone else. Like, for I can smile about it right now because you're experiencing it. But if I was experiencing 14 degrees, I'm not sure that I'll be smiling so much. So I'm impressed by those who live in those frigid weathers and keep smiling. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Well, listen, the way we like to do it is we like the guests to introduce themselves. So would you let folks know what you want them to know about you before we jump into this conversation about masks?
Well, first of all, I have the honor, if you will, of living a pretty darn creative life. And I was writing an article about responsibility recently, actually just finished it today. And as I was writing this, I was reflecting on, I was looking back. So I was looking back in time, and I was thinking, wow, I've had a pretty blessed ride, in so many ways. So I think I'd want people to know that. And, it doesn't mean that there haven't been hiccups, etc. I mean, I can give you name, rank, and serial number and all that, the basics, which I suppose are important, so I'll throw those into the mix too. So my wife and I are married well over 30 years. We've known each other. At this stage in our lives, we've been together for more than half of our lives, which seems kind of crazy to say. We met when we were 28, and we are the proud parents of 6 children that just happen to all be compressed into one 24-year-old man's body.
Interesting description.
Yeah, and he's absolutely fantastic, and like so many kids his age, well, young people his age, still living at home, and delighted to say that he just happens to be great company. Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot of different things in terms of data on Ken. I have 2 degrees in fine arts. I was a ski instructor for a number of years. I coached a college racing team. I held jobs that I thought were going to support my artwork, never paying much attention to the fact that they were going to take an awful lot of time and not leave me with a whole lot of energy. I was a personal fitness trainer for a while, a professional baker, a sous chef, a line cook. I think of myself as a Renaissance man. My wife used to say that I was just unfocused. I think both are true. and I mentioned earlier I lived a pretty blessed life. And what's true is when I wasn't chasing money, which I did for a while, and those were in many ways some of the darkest times I experienced as an adult. But when I wasn't focused on chasing money, I followed my heart as far as the work that I do. And that's been pretty darn good. I know that not everybody has that opportunity. So I am, wildly delighted and grateful for that. That's some background.
No, that's really, I mean, I took it all in. It's really beautiful. I think, when you said your wife says you said a jack of all trades, is that what you said?
No, my wife would say I'm unfocused. I like to think of myself as a Renaissance man, unfocused. Yeah.
Renaissance man. All the pieces of coming together. Do you still pick on those things from time to time? Like, do you still bake? Do you still?
Well, there's an interesting story. I won't bore you with the whole thing, the whole boring story. But when I left the food industry, I swore that I would never again cook for anyone I did not love, and I have kept my word around that. So yeah, cooking is one of my creative outlets. Baking is also one of my creative outlets. Playing music, writing, all those things. So yeah, the freezer is always full of home baked bread.
Okay. See, I didn't even know you could freeze bread. Well, I've seen people do it. I just didn't know it was a baker would do it. So I thought we just did it because it was going to go bad if we didn't get it put away,
Yeah, well, if you bake more than you're going to eat, then you kind of at one shot, then the freezer is the friend. I'll put it that way.
And I see your instruments behind you, so that's exciting to have them here and bring it into the space.
Yeah, thanks.
I appreciate you talking about the creative part, because I think that's something that I'm actually is going to come up when we talk about mass, because I think there's many parts of my life where I didn't think I was creative because I got bad grades in art, and I was always told I was a bad colorer and all these things, and that's how they grade you in grade school. They're like, "Oh, you color outside the lines, you're bad at this, and if you can figure out how to color in the lines, you're good at this." And I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going to be an artist, right? And I think I combine creativity with art as a way of like being like I'm not creative, but I think I've been more embracing it lately than I have. Ken, the way we do it is we let the guest decide who goes first. So either you want to go first with sharing your mask, and then we'll just kind of alternate back and forth, front and back, or you want me to go first, and we go that same way.
Yeah, let's do the alternate back and forth, front and back.
Who do you want to go first?
How about I go first on the front, and you can go first on the back?
Oh, okay. We've not done it that way before. First time for everything. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. So do you want me to bring it up before the camera?
That would be great. Just so
here we go. We have to cue the 2001 music. Boom, boom, boom. We'll stop there. That's me.
Oh, you're an artist. Oh, this is art. This is some art.
Or something.
Oh, wow.
So there we go. Is that all in the frame?
It is all in the frame.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
So
right.
what can I tell you about it?
Yeah, just tell us the words you wrote on the front and then whatever you want to share about that.
The words I wrote are, what did I say? Big-hearted, inspiring, and fun. And, I think that generally speaking, it's funny, I did so part of this language or part of what pointed me here was a recent experience. I'm in the middle of a whole rebranding thing right now.
You can put it down.
Oh, okay, thanks. I didn't know how long you wanted to. I was like, can you make his mouth move?
It's gonna be VR. Get ready. Season 2.
Yeah. So one of the things that part of it was basically doing a kind of a 360, and when the woman who was taking me through the 360 asked what I thought would be the top, the top quality that people named, I think I might have said funny or, at this point, because I've been living with it for so long, I can't even remember what it was. But she just shook her head. Claudia is her name. Just kind of shook her head. She said, "Nope, guess again." So I threw something else out, and my inner significant one was looking for, okay, there must be something really deep here. And what she said was, it wasn't any of those. It was love. And so, first of all, I was really moved by that, and moved Ashanti to the point where I well, you don't know because I haven't said it yet, but I'm thinking, okay, that's great information, and I get it because I do. That's one of the things I know about myself is I love well, I love hard, I love deeply, and but I'm looking at I'm doing a commercial, quote unquote commercial rebranding. I'm thinking, oh God, what am I going to do with that? At the same time that I'm deeply moved by it, and the longer I sat with it and had conversations with, the people who I know and love and trust, it didn't surprise them. It didn't surprise them, and the other words there are fun and inspiring. And I know about the fun part. I had a very good teacher in the being of my father. And, I mentioned the blessings before, and part of the blessing has been following the fun. A big piece of that has been following the fun. Because for me, if it's not fun, there's something missing. And what I know is when I'm having a good time, for lack of a better way of putting it, I feel like my soul and my spirit they're in the room. They're both present and in the room. And if I'm not enjoying myself, then I feel like I'm disconnected from those bigger parts of myself. Well, and I think both of those things create, if you will, they create the room for inspiration to flood in.
Thank you for that. First of all, thank you for sharing that. And I think the love piece is really powerful. And I think that when you said I love big, I like that part is so, I think, beautiful. Big hearted, fun, inspiring. But even in the story, right? The idea is that feels like it comes through. Like that's what the passion connects to, And I think, yeah, when I think about that, I've never used that word on the front. I never used love on the front of my mask. I made hundreds of masks, but now that I think about it, I'm like, I believe I'm a loving person. I love people. I want the best for people. And I think even using that word, I found the barrier to being like, yeah, don't be getting all, even though, and I've never thought of it as a word to add to the front. And so thank you for sharing that. And I think I'm going to add it today.
Go for it. There's
because I
plenty to
think
go
that
around.
there is, and it hasn't made it there yet. So if this is so thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share my mask, the front, and then you want me to go first on the back, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
All right. So here's what I drew today. Originally, it was going to be a Christmas tree, a mask, and then I was like, what are you doing? And so I put the other side as just like a regular squared off mask. So it's kind of having a question. It's doing whatever it did today. That's what it was calling today. And the words I wrote were creativity, creative, serious, and the last one that I was searching for, loving.
I like that. Yeah. Double underlined loving.
Yeah. It's first timer. It's a first timer. So I'm always trying to I think, like maybe a year ago, I used the first word. I used care for the first time on the front. And I'm like, oh, why? I do care a lot. Why have I never used that word? I think just growing up, there was rules about, like, first of all, what you could be, what you had to be, the rules of what you needed to be, and the rules about how you describe yourself, right? And so to be like, oh, I'm a very loving person. Like, I don't think that was ever a sentence that in my community was normalized for sure. And definitely it would be looked at with a lot of like, what? What are you talking about? Like kind of a confusion around why? Why did you say something like that? Right. I think, and that's my projection of what I think would have happened, right? Because just knowing my community in a way like that, So I think even though deep down I was always caring for others and trying to support others, I wouldn't have described that as a word that I was been like, oh yeah, I'm a very loving person. Huh. I would have been like, I'm hardworking, I'm dedicated, I'm passionate, I'm smart, I'm talented, right? Like I may have come down the list, but I don't think that it would have been like on the high one, even though if you ask me my values, I think being a loving person is one of my values. And I wonder how often I didn't get to like express those vividly because the community says here's the box you need to fit in. Here's the man box that you require to demonstrate to be accepted in this band of men who don't feel anything but anger and funny and maybe apathy, like whatever, I don't care, right? So I think to be exploring of that, to give, and the work we do in Ever Forward is giving young men a space to do that, right? Like, how do we give young men earlier space before they have to go to some workshop when they're in their mid-age to say, oh, wait, there is more to me. Oh, there is more to me than people can see. Oh, I do feel other things that I have not been showing. And I think it wasn't until I started I started the Ever Forward Club before I even went to my first men's weekend. And so to really like know that I was creating it by something I felt that was needed, but I had never had it for myself. It was really interesting when I went to my first men's circle.
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on here? Like, what is going on here? Like, this is what I've been looking for. Like, this is what I have been trying to create with these young men, but I had no model. So I was making it up just based on intuition. And so that's been a beautiful journey.
I love those other words. You are hardworking, and I can't remember what else was in there.
Dedicated, passionate.
Yeah, hardworking, dedicated, smart, etc. And what I love about that is, that's often that is the mask that I think in many ways the culture asks us to put on. It's like, okay, you're going to lead. You're going to lead with the part of you that can get put on a resume.
Yeah.
Versus
That's right.
the part of you that is what everyone wants, and I don't know that. I think that's pretty universal. What do we want? We want to love, and we want to be loved. And still, there's something about you mentioned the man box. There's something about it's like, okay, well, if we can we turn it into at least a little bit of an oval and.
Yeah.
No, quite frankly, I think it's just time for it to go away. But that's a conversation maybe for another time, or not.
And I think even that, right? Like, I think when you said that, like, if these qualities are the ones I can put on my resume, the ones that fit really well on my profile on LinkedIn or whatever, right? And the other ones are ones that I either have to, for the most part, not like where do I get to show them? Where do those qualities get to be shown and seen? Maybe only at home, hopefully. Maybe only with maybe a small set of friends, but as a whole, like where do I get to, like where do those qualities serve me? Like at the playground, being a super loving boy growing up in Oakland in this big old body was seen as weakness. Like if you showed, like it was almost like you had to disconnect part of your heart from your head in order to make it home in one piece, right? And so therefore I found myself having to, at home, I was a nurturer. I was raising my siblings. So I was always cooking, cleaning, helping them with their homework, making sure they had their stuff, what they needed. Like I was raising children before I even knew how to make one, you know? And I think that idea was like, when I went outside, like I remember getting in a fight with somebody because I was helping people up on the football field, right? Like, why are you always helping people up? Like, why are you always trying to go over and help people? I'm like, oh, you can't do that here. Or you can't be caring and too caring out here because that's seen as weak. And so therefore, it's something that seems normal that you would just want to do. It's almost seen as like, no, not here, not here.
Yeah.
And those are interesting pieces, you know?
They're fascinating pieces, you know, including the if you think about what's taught in spiritual community and religious institutions. How often have we heard that, you know, love is the ultimate power. Love is the, you know, love. No, nothing is greater than love on the one hand. And then, and then if we show up with, and I love that example, if you show up with an act of service or an act that comes from the heart, why are you helping that? Why are you helping that man up? Well, because he's down, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, why do you change a flat tire? Because the tire is flat. You know, it's not rocket science. And yet at the same time, you know, I love that you're pointing to those, you know, it's like in that moment, and I'm imagining, and I'm looking at my own younger days as well. But I'm also imagining in those moments where you specifically seeing another player down on a football field from the opposing team, even in that moment of reaching the hand down to help him up, it's like, okay, I'm going to take the mask off. Okay, mask back on.
Yeah. I remember it happened during a game once. I was on defense, so my job was to hit people hard. I remember the coach. I remember the yell. I remember him calling my name from the sideline, and it was like I'm gonna be running all week. He was like, "Branch, stop helping people up." Like I would go in, I'll hit the quarterback, and then I'll be like, "Here, let me help you back up." Right? But that's my job. I did the job. Now wait, what? I'm not mad at him. I don't have anything against him, right? But I think this mentality of the team is that you're supposed to just keep the edge on always.
Yeah.
Don't like, and so almost if you get to that place where you begin to like, it almost seemed like you were like helping the other team. And for people who have become mono team, like you can't talk to the other team. If you talk to anyone outside of this group, then you're an enemy. You become seen as like not. So therefore, if I want to learn about other groups that I don't identify with, but I want to learn more. It's easy for a group to be like, oh, so you want to be with them? Oh, so you don't want to be with us anymore? As if they couldn't both exist in the same reality, you know? Yeah.
The notion of I just want to underline something you said there because it's so important. The notion that if I'm competing against you, I mean, even in a sport, you know, if I'm competing against you, that makes you my enemy.
Yeah.
You know, and if I'm competing against you, I'm competing against you. You know, for me anyway, that's kind of it. Do I like winning? Yeah, absolutely. You bet.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
do I have to belittle you in order in order to win?
Yeah.
I would argue no. If anything, I want to elevate you because elevating you is going to elevate my game.
And, I think that this comes up to when we get to the back. So I'm gonna share the back. You want me to go first? You still want me to go first, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Because this one's going to come up in one of the things I'm going to describe. So the back, they're the ones in the back: fear, worry, and self-doubt. And in parentheses, I wrote, ask me anything. So when you talked about the rebranding, I have a team helping me right now with like some of my social media stuff, and they're creative. And Monday of this week, I woke up and I saw the post. I reviewed it last week. So I was like, okay, yes. And then it was not until I saw it literally on LinkedIn where it was like, ask me anything, holiday edition. And I was like, who approved this? And realizing that I had approved it, but I didn't know how I was going to feel when it was like out in the world, because in order to have that out there, I have to there's a lot of things that are happening in my own cognitive dissonance. Like, I don't know everything. So how can I ask people to ask me anything? What if somebody asks me something I don't want to answer? And I go into this loop in my mind of and so I was like, oh no, this can't. And so I saw it and I was like, okay, close it. Don't look at it. And I was like, okay, no. I got to go put a disclaimer. So I go in and I'm trying to edit the thing where I'm like, under anything, I put 2 stars and I'm like, here's a fine print. And I'm like, anything is referencing to anything that I am knowledgeable about, right? Education, mental wellness, youth development. And I found myself like a half hour trying to write this disclaimer because the question made me feel a lot of self-doubt, like a lot of worry about I don't have all the answers, right? And so all these things, I know that wasn't what the team was thinking when they created it. And I didn't think about it when I first saw it, but the anything word threw me off. Like, I don't mind people asking me questions, right? But I want to only answer questions of things that I think I know. And so I remember just feeling that, and I typed it, and then as I was trying to save it to update the post, my phone crashed, and so I lost this half hour writing that I had done and I was like, I don't have energy to write this thing again, and I didn't write it. I didn't write it again, but I've been processing that doubt, that worry inside of me, the fear of whatever it was coming up. A lot of things were coming up, but I was like, okay, it can't be anything. We have to change it for we can't write anything. We can't write, ask me anything. Because do I want people to ask me anything? No, I don't really sometimes. But I think, anyway, it was just that idea of wow, that kind of pressure of doubting that. Why would somebody ask me about astrophysics? I mean, I even wrote astrophysics in my disclaimer. If you ask me about astrophysics or anything like astronomy, I'm going to be sarcastic and the answer is going to be pretty much wrong, right? So I was being ridiculous. Why would somebody ask me about astrophysics unless they were just actually trying to play a game or be a joke or, be like, well, answer this question that I know you can't answer. And that's not worth my time anyway. But I was feeling the pressure of perfectionism, of trying to get it right. And that's the one that's really hot for me, because it was 2 days ago that I was like, why did I let this post happen? I was trying to figure out if I got edit the post. I was trying all these things. And that half an hour project of writing this disclaimer got erased. And I was kind of disappointed in the moment, but I'm laughing about it now a little bit. But I'm also I haven't gone back to go see the post yet. So I know that that if there's any questions in there, I definitely have not answered any of them at this point,
Let me know if you go on there and there's a dozen astrophysics questions. But there's something in there that highlights, again, because the man box is in the room. Even something in that. Let me write this half-hour disclaimer. And this is how, in my world anyway, this is how, how tempting those walls are. It's like, oh wait, I have to be able to answer the questions. I have to be able to, whatever. I better create this disclaimer because I have to be able to answer the questions. Whereas if someone sent an astrophysics question as an example, it's like, well, I don't have the answer to that, but Neil deGrasse Tyson might,
Right.
Thank you for asking.
That's out of my league. That's out of my league.
Yeah.
That's not. You should look at my profile and see what I'm about, and then know that the questions has to be related to my expertise. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, that's the one. That's the one. That's the one. That's it. And I think, as I think about the worry and fear, they connected to that. As I think about the things that spend time in here are those things that are trying to give my best, really want to give my best always, and knowing that sometimes it doesn't show up the way I would hope it would show up. Right, my best is sometimes not pretty. It's like, oh, I did. It was my best, but it's actually a mess, right? It's like, how do you do those two?
My best mess.
That is my best mess.
So, are you ready?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, here we go. So once more, the big reveal, and here we go. So I got jealousy, entitlement, and arrogance. And I put these similar shapes on the front, but I put them on after putting them on here first, because as I was writing these, I was like, oh man, this is like the punches in the old Batman comics.
Yeah.
Boom, jealous, boom, entitled,
bam,
boom,
wow.
Arrogant, biff, bam, wow, pow.
Biff, bam.
And I'll unwrap these, because the jealous piece is, I see someone who is doing similar work to mine, for instance, and it looks like or an organization that's doing it. It looks like they're whacking it out of the park. They're just swatting it out of the park, and I'm like, no, and you'll hear, because this is kind of the voice in my head. It's like, well, what's wrong with me? Going that, it's like, what's wrong with me? How come I'm not, all that in a bag of chips in the public eye? And that feeds into this sense of, that, you can hear the entitlement in that. It's like, and there's an element of arrogance to that. To me anyway, there's an elegance. There's not an elegance. It's anything but elegant. There's an element of arrogance in that, thinking like, because and you can hear kind of the back and forth in this. I can hear it anyway. This kind of back and forth of the ego, not a helpful kind of ego, that negative ego, if you will, that has two speeds, and those speeds are grandiosity and insignificance. So it's like, I'm all that in a bag of chips. It's like, oh no, I am like garbage. It's like, yeah, but I'm like, but my ideas are brilliant and better than everyone else's. Like, your ideas are so stupid. The professional jealousy thing, because it's very much professional jealousy, it fascinates me, and I mean that. It fascinates me because when I'm at my best, when I'm really at my best, I know there's plenty to go around. There's absolutely no shortage. Do we have enough men in the world doing men's work? No, absolutely not. We're getting there. We're getting there. Again, when I'm at my best, I don't really. Yeah. Do I want people doing my work and in my programs? Yeah. Do I want them only in my work and doing my programs? No, that's not at all. Those are this week's goodies on the opposite, on the underside of the mask.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much for that. When you said, I want to catch one part you said. You said the play back and forth between the ego, you said from grandiosity, and then you said use another word for the other side.
To insignificance.
Insignificance.
It's like I'm either the savior of the universe, or I'm alone digging a ditch in the dark somewhere, and nothing in between. Nothing in between. Just like boom, 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 boom.
And when you said that, first of all, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's definitely something on the back of my mask that I'm gonna, the next time I make one, I'm gonna use that. I think that idea of jealousy, that idea of like, what I've had to get clear about is what I know I usually do when I watch somebody, when I get into my scrolling fit, right? Of like, oh my God, look at all those likes, look at all those things, look at all this engagement, look at all those comments, look at all that. And I began to feel more of the self-doubt that pops up, the more of the, like, is this working? More of the fear that is never going to get better, right? Like, and I think those things are really rooted in this idea that, like, oh my goodness, how is this happening? What and I think what am I not doing right? Like, it's all about the being. It's like, I think I'm giving my best, so it should be enough for me. But in my mind, I'm making a judgment about it's not enough for out there, so therefore it can't be enough for me. And it's a constant revolving cycle. Well, if it's that post or that thing didn't perform well enough people didn't come to the event, enough young people didn't sign up for the program, then something is wrong with my being. Therefore, since I'm not being enough, I need to do more. But when I'm conscious about, like, today I gave my best, I worked a really hard day, I fulfilled some goals. There's a couple of things I still didn't meet. But if I get unconscious about being conscious, if I get really disconnected from, like, doing some journaling at the end of the day and saying, was today a good day? Did I accomplish, and setting some targets for the day? Like, these are the 3 or 4 things I need to do. And I think I have the intelligence of these things. It's just taking it from the here and putting it into action so they can land in the heart. And I think oftentimes I have to catch myself of, like, relishing in the others who are doing it so much better, or who appear. And then the past couple of weeks, I don't know if you heard about this this DJ named Twitch. He committed suicide.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, and I wrote a comment to somebody else's post. I didn't post about it because I was really dealing with it a lot, but I wrote something like, it's about this mask. Like, fame won't fix it. Riches, the more money won't make it better. Like, it takes us to really navigate. There's so much more to each of us than anybody can see. And I think oftentimes when I would see that man, I would be, like, in awe. Like, oh man, he's on the Ellen DeGeneres show. He's getting viewed by millions. He has, like, and I sometimes found myself, trying to be honest. I'm trying to, like, say the words, like, wanting that, like, but knowing that if I'm not careful, I only see what they let me see. And that's what the work we do. And so when I talk to young people about this, I try and share examples because they do it too. I don't just tell them they do it. I tell them that I do it in the ways that I know they do it, because I do it. I just do it in a different way, right? We all do it in our own ways, and I'm not careful. So yeah, thank you for sharing that word and that mask on the back.
Yeah, you're welcome. And likewise, thank you for sharing yours. There was something, well, there was a lot in what you just said. Well, talking about working with the kids, because, at those younger ages, the cultural messages are coming at us fast and thick and relentlessly, and we don't have the sophistication, at those younger ages. We don't have the sophistication to sift through them and to question them and to really look at, oh, is this, is this accurate? Is it true?
Yeah.
Is it true? And then, the older folks with a little bit more mileage and a mature prefrontal cortex, among other things, to be able to look at some of those messages and say, wow, not only did I, swallow that lock, stock, and barrel, but there's a part of me that still believes it. There's a part of me that's still committed to it. And then to do the work of finding that part of oneself and letting, in this case, him know that wasn't true. That wasn't true. And being with that part of oneself as they, because it's hard to let go of things that we attach to. Of course.
in the work that you do and the work you've done with men, how have you seen, or what, this is an activity we created to really, I mean, you and I are sharing our masks here publicly, we invite people out in the world to share their masks anonymously first, right? Can you name those three things? Just three, right? That you can put on this mask and share anonymously with the world. And sometimes we're trying to get this goal. We're a long way from 1 million, right? We have probably close to, we have 65,000 plus, right?
Wow.
But how often do I? Oh, thank you. I have to be careful because I am always looking toward 1 million, and I'm so far away, right? So thank you for that. I sometimes want it faster, right? In my mind, why are we not at 1 million already? There's 8 billion people on the planet. Why? And I know that it's in its due time. It's also preparing me to get ready for that, right? Am I ready for achieving this goal, right? Am I ready for the next steps that I need to be prepared for as we serve more people? When you serve 1 million people, am I ready? And so I think sometimes it's just that idea. But as the men's work you've seen, what have you found is the easiest way or the most approachable way to help people who may find some resistance to taking a look behind the mask, even though they're not ready to share it, but even just taking a look at what's happening behind the facade that we've had to create?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think I can talk about it from the angle of my own work more than what I've seen. And I think the first step is to create. We hear this has become a bit of a cliche, and I think in many ways gotten a bad name, and it's absolutely necessary. And that is it starts with the creation of a safe space,
Yeah.
And the funny thing about safe spaces is because there's an assumption, there can be an assumption. There can be an assumption that a safe space is kind of this soft, mushy, we can't say anything in a safe space that might upset anyone. And what's true is that if you really create a safe space, you can say anything in it. Anything that isn't hurtful to another. That's a key piece. Anything that isn't hurtful to another. But in terms of one's own experience, we get to share those things. And oftentimes it takes again, talking about the work that I do, it takes going there first. If I want you if I expect that you're going to be vulnerable, I had better show my hand. I had better, if I expect you to show up with an open heart, I'd better show up with an open heart. And so sometimes it's a matter of going first. There's another piece that I thought of. Let me see if I can recall it. Oh, another key piece of it, and it goes along with creating that emotional safety, that sense of emotional safety, is normalizing. Normalizing. This isn't easy stuff to talk about. Let's not pretend. Yeah. Let's not pretend it is. It becomes easier to talk about over time, and with practice. That's another piece. Is it takes practice. Because trust, and this I learned from some great mentors, there's this kind of new agey idea that, just trust. Just trust. All you got to do is trust. Just trusting is dangerous.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Just trusting is dangerous. Trust is not automatically given. Trust is earned. And as I'm quoting my mentors as well here. You drop love, it bounces. You drop trust, it shatters. And it takes as long or longer to rebuild trust once it's broken than it did to build it, than it does to build it in the first place. So building trust, creating a safe space, going first, leading with what one wants to see are wildly, wildly important. Did I answer the question?
Hey, you dropped some nuggets. Those are nuggets of. And I'm writing down the one you just said. If you trust, If you drop love, it bounces. If you drop trust, it shatters.
It shatters. Yeah.
And I think that what we see with the young men in our work, it's a constant battle to help them find the trust of the circle, to get to a place where they're willing to like let it out. And how do we, when we're dealing with teenagers who still don't have all those frontal lobe processes kicked in well, like we had one circle I remember, I almost never forget it. A young man who was like a leader. So he was really learning how to lead these young men. He was the club, he was a team captain, and he was growing. And one young man in the circle actually had told something that happened in the circle outside because he was trying to impress some girls. And so the captain brought it to me and the other leader, and he's like, I'm going to bring this to the circle today. Like, this would happen. And we're like, yeah, we have to do it. I mean, and so we call the other young man into the circle, and this young man, like we have to handle that delicately with this young energy, right? But also a place we don't let nobody get hurt, right? And so, and he told the young man, he said, I felt disrespected, that I felt you breached our trust. We have confidentiality here. You went and told someone else something I said here. And man, to have him be able to do it in a healthy way, because what normally happens in our community is going to be a fight, right? And we've seen like, you a snitch, you blah, 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 all these things. But to have him have a space to come and say, you betrayed my trust, right? And then find ways of helping rebuild that, right? Because you do, when you come to a space where you think you got some safety and then you let something out and then it comes back, you're like, and I think that it's hard for adult men to deal with that. Definitely not a 16-year-old, right? Who your image is all you got with a few select sort of peers, right? So, yeah,
Right.
man, thank you for that. I want to respect your time, and I want to, man, thank you for this conversation. I've really enjoyed this conversation with you. And is there anything else you want to say about the mask, about anything before we wrap it up?
The concept, Ashanti, is so on the money. I'm even thinking of that example that you just gave with this young kid who broke agreed upon rules of the group, and the laying down of so many masks from certainly from leadership, but also I'm imagining in the room there were lots of masks laid to rest that day, and days following. There's another piece in there that I really love, because I think you highlighted another piece of what allows someone to take off the mask, allows someone to really share their heart, to share what's true about them, is the rigor, and there's some paradox there too, because it's on the one hand, we're holding this rigorous container. This is a fascinating thing. We're holding this rigorous container, which sounds kind of like, it could be a can, it could be a box, it could be a tank, who knows? But we're holding this rigorous container in which you can let the walls down, which is fascinating. It's like you got to have these solid walls in order to take walls down.
That's exactly right.
It's just brilliant. Right. It's just brilliant. So I don't know if that addressed the question, but I think
Well, no, it does, and I think from my it also has to have a solid foundation too.
Right. Yep.
Because if I'm gonna have a building that has all glass, like walls that are like very different, I need to make sure I've created some structure under it, so that I think you said something about when it all doesn't just go fall down, right? It all doesn't just go crumbling down, right?
Yep.
Well, man, Ken, I tell you, I appreciate you. And is there, if for people who want to either follow your work or learn about what work you're doing in the world, is there anything you want to share with folks about things that you're working on or projects, or tell them how they can follow you? Yeah.
I have a podcast called Mojo for the Modern Man. And you can find that wherever fine podcasts are served. So check that out. It's an interview format, really looking at the intersection of great stories, because men come on and tell their life stories. Great stories, creativity, crisis often, and personal power and responsibility. So invite you to, and all through the lens of, looking at it as men, as human beings who walk around in man skin. I'll put it that way. And I have a program called I Am, which is the Integrated Adult Man. And I talked a little bit about the work that I do. That's the main piece. That's my legacy men's work, if you will. And there's also a graduate program called I Am Mastery that comes after that. But check out, and you can find all that stuff on my website. And a new one is coming. By the time this is aired, it might be out. A new one's coming. You can get there. Use my name, kenmossman.com.
Cool.
So thanks for giving me the opportunity to share that stuff.
We'll link all of it in the show notes. So folks, you can look right there in the show notes. All this information will be there. Ken, thank you for being on the show today. And folks, Ken and I, we share our mask here publicly. You don't have to do that. You can actually go and make a mask anonymously, millionmask.org. And all this will be in the show notes for you. But thanks for listening. And Ken, I had a really enjoyable time with you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ashanti. It has been a delight.
The Taking Off the Mask podcast is produced by Ryan Louie and graphics by Kelly Wong. Guests are managed by Dan Paloma, and the podcast is edited by Samuel Matingo. We'd like to thank everyone who's been a part of the creation of this podcast, and for every guest that's been a part of the show, you are now a part of the Taking Off the Mask family. The Taking Off the Mask podcast is brought to you by the Ever Forward Club. And if you like what you've heard today, please subscribe, write a 5-star review, and share this with someone. We look forward to having more conversations that matter. And please remember, there's more to you than anybody can see by just looking at you.